Erica Phoenix, or Erika Might Be Bees on Twitch. Welcome to the inaugural, really, episode of the Midnight Theater Kids. Today I am here with a good friend, talented performer, Zero Pilnik. And Zero, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's so good to have you here. Uh, Tell us a little bit about your background and just the ways that you work in performance or other mediums that you also kind of participate in.
So I was born and raised in São Paulo, in Brazil. My background, I've always been doing art of some form. My mom is a ballerina and my grandma is a pianist. So I kind of have been on the stage my whole life. My mom enrolled me in ballet classes even before I could walk. So
Mm.
kind of the only life I've ever known.
Wow.
um,
How long
I decided to
did
go
you do
into theater
dance?
and
Oh.
less dance and music
Mm.
when I was pretty young. I think I was about 8 or a little bit, maybe a little bit younger.
Okay.
And yeah, and then ever since then, I've basically been in the theater, and now I am more getting into TV and film. So let's see.
Oh.
But this is kind of the general trajectory. As you know, I also went to school in the U.S. I lived in the U.S. for about 6 years. I went to Cal Arts, studied acting and creative writing, and then I moved to the Czech Republic, and then I moved to Berlin, and I've been based in Berlin for the past 4 years, almost 4 years
Wow. That's
now.
it's wonderful to go to map almost the way that you've moved from medium to, your different arts that you've explored, and then also the way that you've traveled from Brazil to the United States to Europe. So when I talked to you, I was really struck by how you mentioned the internet kind of serves for you. The way that it serves your art, maintaining and keeping connections, and then the way that you saw it as an art form versus the way I
Mhm.
saw it as an art form. So I'd love to revisit that and just kind of get your overall opinions, ideas on the internet as a medium for creation.
Yeah, you have to also remind me a little bit about what we talked about. But as
Mm-hmm.
far as I recall, we were talking about, or I was talking about the fact that I think the internet, I mean, for me, for my art or for how I express myself, which is very different than other theater makers and other, well, performers, I see it less as a medium in which I am able to express myself. So I'm not really interested in doing web content so much, or like Zoom performances, but I am very interested in the fact that it has kind of decentralized
Mm-hmm.
these big theater spaces, or cities like New York, like London. So now people can get connected to a lot of people everywhere, and a lot of things are also online, like workshops and other things. So then you get still a big community without having
Yeah.
to be in that place, right?
Exactly. So you and I met when we were both World Theater Map ambassadors for the
Yeah.
HowlRound Theater Commons. So we actually, because the way that that was structured, HowlRound would have these meetings, and they were before Zoom when it was on Skype. They would be Skype meetings, and we would see each other's faces, and we
Yeah.
actually saw each other that way before we met in Prague, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's this ability for, I love the idea of this decentralized, where you don't have to be in New York, you don't necessarily have to be in London or all of these big places, but you can be in a community and you can reach out to people who need connection, to
Yeah.
to to invite them in and to make them feel welcome, and have
Yeah.
conversations like this where you connect over ideas that you can then make concrete on the stage or in film.
Totally. I think
Mm,
I think that we think a bit differently about this
mm,
from what I remember. But I do think, for example, that being in the place. So I live in Berlin, and definitely for me, living in Berlin is super important because this is where things happen, and I know that
mm,
I wouldn't have been able to get a lot of opportunities just online. But again, I'm also not a very I don't have a big online presence. Let's say I'm not like
mhm,
using social media too much. I think I am a bit of a passive internet user. And
mhm,
yeah, it's true. And a lot of people are more active and they go after things and they do live streams and they do forums and I don't know. And I think
mhm,
that maybe that's also the difference. But I know that for me, for example, I would imagine connecting to someone online and then saying, okay, let's go to New York to perform this show, for example.
mhm.
Because yeah, but I don't remember why I started talking about this one. I was
That's okay. That's
there
fine.
was
It's
out
true
there that
that
I
for you, so everybody engages with the internet differently. And I mean, it
yeah.
depends on their age, it depends on where they're from,
Actually,
how. I mean, I was, from the second we had internet, I was on the internet all the time.
yeah,
um, but I
totally.
think that for me, it did give connecting to groups that I didn't necessarily have access to growing up. Um, People who enjoyed, like, honestly, I was on the musicals.net, so talking about musicals with strangers. But people don't necessarily like that. It depends on how much you like to read, how much you watch.
Yeah,
It depends on, um, I mean,
yeah.
it
I
does
mean,
detract. Go ahead.
maybe this is a bit off topic, but I also loved when I was like preteen, teen, like to get into these forums or like chats and just talk to people and pretend to be someone else and pretend to be this super interesting person. But I think this relates so much to theater, but in like this immersive kind of
Mm,
way also, you know. They're like, oh, I need to find
mm.
photos of someone who's not me, who's like prettier than me, and then like
So
I need
catfishing. You were catfishing people.
catfishing because I wasn't something out of them aside from empathy, I guess. But that's not
Mm,
cat. Come on, I
no,
wasn't
that's
gonna
not catfishing.
ask for money, but I was like an awkward teenager who just wanted to be super cool and hot.
I mean, weren't we all though? Like, did we all just want to be just adored, or
Yeah.
that's so. I love that, hearing about the way that you engaged with the internet as a teen, how you engage with it now. Um, I loved when we were talking about the production of a film or a production of a play, that for you the production of it wasn't just the piece that was being created, it was the entire experience. I'd
Mhm.
love for you to speak to that. For you, what do you love about the fullness of production? Yeah, I just enjoyed hearing about that. Doesn't all have to be about digital, but that was something that I really adored, the way that you spoke about it.
Yeah, I think I'm realizing more and more that for me, the whole process is important, and it's important for me to be involved in the entire thing. So, um,
Mm,
not only conceiving the idea, but also I really firmly believe that everything that happens behind the scenes is super important. And I think it was Anne Bogart that said this when I did the city company workshop, that she said, we kind of create a story off stage and then another one on stage, and the audience can perceive both in a way. And it's really important for us to create the kind of world we want to see off stage. So in the rehearsal room, what kind of rehearsal room do we want to have? What kind of dynamics do we want to have between people? It's not enough to just have an interesting product. For me, it's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
I want to create a microcosm of the society that I want to see in the rehearsal room, on a film set, or wherever. So I think this is becoming more and more important now for me, because there's just so much to be said about, um, I'm trans, and so that's always, it's not always an issue, but it's always, I guess, a lingering question of
Mm.
language, and even like lighting, and even hair and makeup, and which characters I play, and also if I'm playing a
Mm.
female character, how are people calling me when I'm not on screen, and um,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, among other things, of course, but I think especially we were talking a lot about devising, which is something
Mm-hmm.
that I know you're very interested in. And I think especially in the context in which is less hierarchical than a film set, for example, or a theater production that has a very clear hierarchy, thinking about what kind of dynamics we want to create is extremely important, because this will bleed into the work, I think.
Mm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, I love that. Yeah, it's a microcosm, it's a collective, it's theater, and all of these arts that are entwined are about the collaborative aspect. When you take that away, it becomes, it loses kind of an effervescence, and it loses,
Yeah.
connection. Um, have you had any experiences, or do you have any anecdotes of ways? And it doesn't have to be about your identity, but it can be about when you felt um, that reflection was there, that what was being created reflected the society that you wanted to see.
Mhm. Um, Yeah, there were a few instances. I had this feeling many times when I was working with Double Edge Theater, this theater company in Western Massachusetts. They're based in a farm, and their whole thing is about sustainability and working with the community. And I thought that was super impressive, and it really stunned me that this it's almost like a ecosystem of the community,
Yeah.
the artists, and the artists give back to the community. And I think
Mm.
that that is brilliant. But to be honest, I think the one that's been on my mind the most, the example that's been on my mind the most, is I'm part of a drag collective. We're called the Venus Boys. And
Nice.
yeah, and okay, without giving too much detail, because I don't know what is okay to say and what isn't, but in the past couple of years since the pandemic started, we've been really questioning that our group dynamics and our
Mm.
values, and we've always been, so we were always doing performances, and then we were never getting paid beforehand. It was all like pay what you can, and like we would collect tips at the end, and we would split the tips equally, no matter if it was your first time performing, if you organize a show or whatever. um, and this is kind of our anarchist way
Mm.
of doing the thing. And then slowly this also started shifting as other questions started coming up, like, so there are some people in our collective who are in a more precarious visa status, or who are people of color who maybe have less opportunities, and whatever. I don't know. There are
Mm-hmm.
lots of possibilities. Other people who are struggling with mental health, and so is it really fair to split the money equally, or should we think of a more, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
a different way, for example? So these kinds of questions, I think we're asking ourselves a lot and are changing things according to what feels right in the moment. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really nice and also really stressful to be in this situation, because it is a lot of work, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things are not, like, they don't work, and then we have to sit back and be like, okay, no, wait, let's
Mm-hmm.
look at this again, let's try to figure out a different way to approach this. And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Uh, that's interest. That's interesting. Thank you for sharing that because oh,
Yeah.
it's so good. Um, it really says a lot that what you think or what we as a collective, as a society, think equity is versus, meeting
Equality.
needs, equality. Yeah.
Yeah.
What and how do we kind of address that? So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I Let's go back to the internet a little bit, and then I'm going to ask some, I guess, viewer submitted questions. But it's really wonderful and refreshing to hear different people's experiences, because sometimes if you're in a position where you can't travel or you can't be out and creating, hearing about other people's creative work, what they are creating, making, undertaking, it inspires you and it reminds you that even
Totally.
if you can't do it now, you can do it um, again in the future.
Totally. I
Mm,
mean, and or in a different way also. There's not one right way to do things also.
mm, yeah. So if a
Yeah.
certain medium's not working, it's always okay to shift to writing instead of performing, or even to a visual art instead of the written word, to find what helps you resonate your inner life at the time that you need, however it serves you. Yeah, going kind of back to the internet, going back to the virtual, is there a way that you found it to serve you or to help you in your work or in your life that, even if it's not in the creative side, have you
Mhm.
found it um, useful as even just a tool, finding resources or things like that?
Yeah. I mean, of course, the internet is like everything, but
It's
I'm
everything now. It's a silly question.
I'm thinking of, have you seen Inside by Bo Burnham?
Yes.
Yeah, do you remember the saying, "Welcome to the internet"? Yeah, it's kind of like
Yeah.
there's everything,
Mhm.
um, but I think more specifically, I was thinking about this the other day because I did an interview for something that I'm a finalist for, and they were asking me about why I made the shift into, or I'm making the shift from theater into TV. I'm not quitting theater, but
Mhm.
I'm like steering a bit my path.
Mhm.
But and then I was thinking a lot about, for example, my grandma, one of my grandmothers, she, so as I said, I'm from Sao Paulo, and since I was, I don't know, 2 or 3, she lived in Rio. So she was never really around to see my shows. She's never seen me perform, which
Oh.
is really strange because I've been performing for like 20 years. But she's never seen my shows. And I think I was always a bit. It's not that she doesn't support me. She supports me a lot, but I think there is a bit of a cloudy idea of what it is that I do exactly. It's almost like it's not
Mhm.
real, you know. And um, I started noticing that when we would talk on the phone, because we talk pretty often over the internet, which is also possible just because of the internet, that I live in Berlin and my family lives in Brazil. We were, the conversation is always kind of like, I talk about what's going on for me, she talks about what's going on for her, and it's like, yeah, cool. Like it's, I'm hearing this or she's hearing what I'm saying, but we can't really share these things because we're not, when, like I don't know the people she's talking about, she doesn't know the people I'm talking about. There's no
Mm-hmm.
point of reference. But then the thing that we really do share are TV shows, because we watch some of the same TV shows, or if not, and I'm like, oh my God, I just watched this amazing show, you should watch this, and blah blah blah. And I think somehow this this thing, this like really daily, like quotidian thing in our lives, is something that, even though I live in one country and she lives across the ocean for me, we share. And I thought, wow, this is just amazing, and only possible due to, I don't want to say the streamer, like, I mean, streamers, let's say streamers, because of course, if we were talking about cable, like I didn't have any kind of streaming service when I lived in the US,
Mm.
and I didn't have cable, so it was like, I don't know, I would rent some films, and that was
Mm-hmm.
it, right? It wasn't like something that was happening in the moment that we were doing together.
Yeah.
Um, and this, yeah, this really shifted everything for me. So then I was like, oh wow, like this medium is so international, and there's just such a huge reach. And yeah, and so I think this is only possible due to the internet, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I know a lot of, not a lot of streaming platforms, but some of them. The one that comes to mind is of course Disney Plus. Bleh. But they have a co-watching thing now where you can send a link to
Yeah,
someone and you can watch a movie
I
at the
saw
same
that.
time.
I saw
It
that,
was,
and you can write
yeah.
stuff on the chat.
Yeah. Oh, can you? I don't. Oh, Netflix has it too, and I think
Right.
Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime has that, and then you can write some stuff
Yes.
up on the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
May I ask what TVs you two are suggesting to each other?
Oh my God.
Or is there a genre or something that you both really love to watch?
No, it's like everything. It's like everything. Um, she just told me, like, because I'm in Brazil right now, so she just told me a couple of days ago, because I'm obsessed, like notoriously obsessed with Killing Eve. And I was kind of
It's
like
good.
telling her about, yeah, this like last season. I'm not gonna spoil anything,
Mhm.
but there's this actress, this French actress called Camille Cotin, and I was like, oh, she's amazing, like she's super hot, blah blah blah. And my grandma was like, oh, you should watch this show that she was in. It's called Call My Agent, and so I'm starting to watch that. I'm like, I watched 20 minutes of it last night, so I have to finish it.
Mhm.
Let's see
Mhm.
if I like it. But I'm very partial to some gorgeous middle-aged actresses. So
I mean, we all should be, to be honest. Like, it's so sad when a lot of, mainstream TV shows or movies, it's like the actresses get younger and the leading men get older and older and older. It's like, oh no, oh no, no, no. It's like, oh, how
yeah,
heteronormative can we be? Ooh.
but I think this is
Mm,
the moment for the middle-aged actresses. I think I have a feeling,
mhm,
because it's like so many amazing roles, both in
mhm,
theater and like TV and film, for specifically like women over 40. And
mm.
I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
It is. It's nice to see. It's nice to see not only that, but like women getting comedy shows that are not like they're like a sidekick. It's not like all of these are men and then
Yeah,
there's the one female, or there's not
yeah.
like, I like that there's diversity
Oh,
coming out, and I think that's,
I can't hear you anymore.
oh no, I disappeared.
Now you're
Hold
back.
on. Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I don't know what happened there. Maybe just a little glitch in the internet. But uh, Yeah, I think that with streaming services, they're so in demand. They're so demanded for new and different, but then you get things where they get canceled after a season or two. Um,
Yeah.
so focusing on your writing, on what you would like to do,
Hmm.
what do you think the relationship is between that and streaming and the internet? What do you imagine, like, the evolution of your work to be with regards to streaming, or just your thoughts?
Yeah, this is an interesting conversation because I've always felt like my whole life, I've always been somehow, I guess behind is not the word, but let's say retro, vintage. Like I still shoot film. Until a couple of years ago, I still film things in mini DV. I am very analog, and that's also why I love theater,
Mm.
because it's like the most analog art form, basically. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I think that what I think is the hot thing right now, which is yeah, TV series, streaming, blah blah blah, limited series, is already over. Like the time for these things is basically ending. I think there's something else that's gonna appear soon. I don't know what it is, if it's like virtual reality or um, I don't know, these interactive. But you know what? I saw some of these like Netflix interactive
Mm-hmm.
things, and I find it pretty hard to navigate, to be honest. So I don't know, maybe they'll get better.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's hard to tell because at the same time, I can also see the whole thing like the other way around, like people using less technology and going back to
Mm.
small, edit, you know, cabaret style almost forms of storytelling. But I don't know. That's a really hard question because I'm also thinking, there's just so much censorship, at least, well, in my culture or my country now, but also in the world, there's just so much censorship and so much um,
Yeah.
bias, like from the internet. And I think sometimes if you remove this factor, so in a theater, and if we're like, let's all get together, like 20 of us, and do something just for us, there's also a lot more freedom in that format.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but I think at least for the next few years, um, I'm pretty sure that things will start to get like TV series or even plays. We're already seeing, and films, of course, like we're already seeing a tendency of shorter lengths. Um, like, no one can watch something for like 2 hours anymore.
Mm. I think the new Batman is like 3 hours, though. I couldn't sit through 3 hours of something unless it was a series. I find it easier to binge watch a series than to sit through an entire movie now, and it makes me wonder why.
It's because you can stop it, I think. It's because you have the possibility to stop it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
also, I mean, I think it's broken up in these acts that are really um, natural somehow for us who are used to commercials coming in every 10 minutes, right? So like,
Yeah.
even if it's if you're streaming something and there are no commercials in the middle, it's like 10 minutes every, like, I don't know, I'm saying 10 minutes, but I don't know the theory too much, but like every X amount of minutes you have sort of like a break in a way, or you can
Mm.
break.
Yeah.
And I don't think film is necessarily the same as some are. Like if you take these like Marvel films, I feel like they're very
Mm.
similar that way. But an art film is not like that at all.
No,
Which
no.
might be really cool. I mean, no one says that they should all be the same, but I think. yeah, if they're not
Mhm.
like short, I don't think most people want to sit through 3 hours of something.
Mm-mm. Yeah. And it's interesting, yeah, when you have the virtual that you can pause, you can walk away from, or if it's something casual like this, someone can even not be watching, just pop on their headphones and be listening to the conversation as opposed to watching it, doing the dishes. So people are really, when it comes to streaming and virtual, we're so used to having our phones at hand that we can go
Yeah,
back and forth between
yeah,
things, right? I'd like to
yeah,
go back to this taboos and censorship because oh yeah, this is 100% a part of it. An example is Twitch will censor. It says that nudity is not allowed. If it's in a game, it's okay as long as you don't focus on it. But you can't do artistic nudity, nudity for education. So Twitch is a platform for sexual education, for um, figure drawing, for all of that. It's like out the window. Um, and it comes down to processing. It comes down, I know, a lot of the time to payment processors being uncomfortable and not wanting to be held accountable. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to add about that, or if you have anything you would like to add about that.
Um, I mean, maybe what I'm gonna say is a bit controversial, but I think a lot of this comes down to like US being a really prudish culture. I don't think that other cultures have the same relationship to nudity as the US. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that is quite detrimental, to be honest, to everyone, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, especially artists, for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's hard to talk about humanity and make shows about humanity when you can't show the entire human form, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
or you can't use it to express. And then you get the layers of if somebody's uncomfortable with a body, it doesn't even have to be, nude female perceived breasts. It can be that this person's body is in some way perceived to be unacceptable to wider society.
right.
And yeah, so I think that we do lose a lot of that in censorship of anything that is live streamed, anything that is sent via the internet, because the U.S. has such a hold over how the those regulations are um, maintained,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
Um, have you watched a lot of online other than streaming? So you've watched a lot of streaming TV shows and movies. Have you watched any performance art shows, theater, anything like that streamed during the pandemic or before
Oh
the
my God,
pandemic?
I'm gonna be so humiliated. This and no, during the pandemic, I watched nothing, like no theater, anything. It just made. I tried to watch
Mm,
um, a streetcar named Desire with Gillian Anderson. I
mm,
don't remember.
mm.
Um, because
Gillian
as I mentioned,
Anderson. Yeah.
I'm very you know a fan of middle-aged actresses doing their thing. No, just kidding. I heard that it was really good, but then it doesn't really hit me the same way. But I did watch
Mm,
something because I did a fellowship last year, and it's like um, kind of a. It's not an organization, but I guess it's like an association. I don't know, that has branches in New York, Buenos Aires, Tel Aviv, and I don't
mm,
know. And there are other fellows from all these other units, and two of them did a Zoom play that I thought was pretty interesting.
mm,
But yeah, then I'm like, is it a play? I don't know, because then I guess the question is, what is a play, right? Because for me
mm.
that was film. It also was not live. They recorded it on Zoom and then they just kind of screened it. Uh,
Mm. I do think
so
that for me, that sense of liveness is a big part of whether it's virtual theater or if it's recorded film, if it's
yeah,
taking place now or if it's like an echo from um, something that's already been done. I had some people on a little while ago, but they spoke to it was Chuck Blue Lowry and Paula Varjak, who are London-based duo, or I guess kind of international. Um, and they had Paula especially had a lot to say on. I think that just how virtual performance, digital theater are actually not able to encompass the wholeness of
yes,
what the virtual and the live the performance itself is. So I think
yeah,
that it's kind of a question of it's still in the process of defining itself, and I think it's still in that process of even being discovered what the possibilities are.
because you know what, for me, what I love about theater
Mm-hmm.
is it's the same thing. Wait, I'm gonna bear with me. Like it's like when you go out with someone
Mm-hmm.
that you are attracted to, and maybe they're
Mm-hmm.
not like the most beautiful person in the world, maybe they're not whatever, but there is this thing, this unspoken attraction or pheromones, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, it's like a thing that you can't really describe, but you know that there's a connection, there's a spark, there's something. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that the same thing happens in theater, um, that you create this. I'm talking mostly about um, non, conventional proscenium stage, because I'm also not a fan of this kind of theater. I also feel like, why should I go to a theater, like watch something like this, sit in the back because I don't have money to buy good seats. I can't
Mm-hmm.
watch anything because I have to wear glasses. I always forget my glasses at home, and like it was the top of people's heads, and it's like, why didn't I just stay home and watch something else out of the comfort of my couch? But
Mm-hmm.
so I'm not really a huge fan of this kind of theater. But if it's like more intimate, if it's like looking into people's eyes, then you create this thing. It's this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know, and that's not. It's not the same on Zoom, because this is like a skin thing. It's like a
Yeah.
body. Yeah.
It is. I completely agree. I 100% agree. And that's why I love theater over, like, I do virtual work like this, I do live streaming, but it doesn't compare to being in the room with someone and
Um,
feeling the audience go, and
yeah.
literally the way they will either suck the air out of the room, ooh, or the way that they will laugh at something unexpected. And
Totally.
I think being a theater artist is playing in that space. It's playing in the way it's kind of like the waves in the moon. The moon kind of controls the tides, and the waves are all of the people kind of looking to the actors for the energy. They're being pulled towards it. There's an expectation there that passive kind of cinema can pull you in, but everybody in the audience has to be invested, and it's again,
Yeah.
it's a recording as
There's a
opposed
difference
to
there.
the human connection of being in the
Totally.
shared space.
I mean, the art of cinema is the image, right? And the art of
Mm-hmm.
theater, I think it is this space that is dangerous. It's like anything can happen. And I think this is what
Mm.
makes it exciting. It's like, okay, I'm the actor, I'm doing the show, but and as an actor, I love this too. That I'm like, I'm the actor, I'm doing the show. I know what I'm doing more or less, but sometimes more than others. But I always have this feeling like I can just do whatever I want. Like if I want to like jump into the audience right now, I can. And yeah, and I think this is
Mm.
also what makes it exciting, because it's like there is this really, no, but it's true. Like
It
there is this
is true, yeah. It's that feeling of danger. It's a feeling of excitement of you don't know. And I mean, kind of going and seeing a show, and I noticed this a lot in American theater, and the way that I was taught in undergrad was you need to do everything exactly the same. You need to make sure that you hit your mark. You need to make sure you say the line the exact same way every night. And it's like, it's not like that.
I don't think I told you this story. It's really funny, but for some reason, I mean, like when I was doing theater in Brazil, of course, like we do the lines as they're written, blah blah blah. But when it's a translation, it's like you can paraphrase a bit, you know, like you can paraphrase. Mostly people paraphrase. And I remember when I went to NTI, the National Theatre Institute, before I went to CalArts, and and then someone was like, "Oh, so did you memorize?" It was like the first week. They're like, "Did you memorize the lines for the scene?" And I'm like, I know what I'm saying. Like, it's fine." And they're like, "No, but you have to say it like as it's written." I'm like, no, but I mean, I know what I have to say. It doesn't need to be exactly. And they're like, "No, it needs to be exactly word by word as it's written." And I was like, "Oof." Yeah.
Ooh.
But now, as an author, I somehow also appreciate that. I mean, I think I would appreciate it more if I'm not there, like if I'm dead or whatever, or if I'm not invited to be part of the production. But since I've only produced work that I mean, I've written stuff and then I've always been involved in stuff. I don't know what that is like, but I've always like, I mean, like a month and a half ago, I shot a short film that I wrote, and I was also performing in it, and I had a co-star, and then I told him, I was like, this is what I wrote, but like, I don't know, dude, say whatever you want to say, dude. I don't care.
Whatever.
Yeah. I mean, this is a story. You got it. Like, just do your thing. Yeah, I'm not so like. Words are just words.
It brings up a question of authorship. And I think particularly in Western, primarily American society, it's like you have to honor the person whose name is on the script. And so the estate can get involved if you don't kind of honor it, or if there's a mistake that's made, or if a line is omitted that isn't, isn't seen as available. But then you also have authors who are like, this was created in a devised setting. This was created as a result of the actors who were, a part of the room, who were in the room. I think of, who wrote, Kushner wrote Angels in America, and I heard a story about like the script and how it was like pages and pages and pages. And this is kind of going more towards like, how do you kill your darlings? How do you take out all of those pieces that are so necessary to the script, but you can't, you can't leave in?
I mean, as an author, I think like as an actor, writer, and to be honest, most of the things I've written, I've also performed in. It becomes pretty evident when something isn't working or isn't like meant to be there, It doesn't flow, at least for me. But I'm also a really intuitive person, and I mostly work with intuition, so I kind of never know what I'm doing. It's like if it sounds like something, then it works.
I love, yeah. Working from intuition is, I think that as an artist, you have to kind of work from this place, right? You have to trust it, trust intuition in a way that sometimes is very difficult to do. Do you think that your intuition has been able to give you that permission to move from dance to performance to writing to cinema? Do you think that your
definitely, because it's like, I mean, I never learned how to write a script. I learned by myself. I read two books and saw something online, watched a bunch of YouTube videos and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's about this timing, maybe. Like,
Mm.
I watch a lot of TV, so I know what the timing of TV shows is. Like I know kind of how it works. I know like cliffhangers. I know kind of these things. Of course, I'm not saying that I'm a great screenwriter. I don't know yet, but maybe I am. I don't know. But I think there is this kind of breadth, and I think the same in theater. In theater plays, that even if they're not your traditional 3-act structure, you can still feel out what
Mm.
it needs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I can only do it when I'm hearing it. Writing, yes, also, but when I hear it, it's like, yeah, this
Mm.
this doesn't work. This has to go.
Yeah. The
And especially with my
difference. Oop.
daughter, I realize that the parts that never work are the ones that I forget the most. I'm like, I skipped over this. Yeah, it doesn't work anyway. Let's just do it. So, yeah.
Nice. That actually brings us really well into some kind of reader submitted questions. I had a question from MattsMusicHouse, who asked kind of who was interested in the approach to the different disciplines and differences or similarities in philosophy and approach to them, especially between musical and theater performance. This might be a lot. And in terms of aesthetics, do you have different ways of working or different personas? And how
Hmm.
does creating for a drag performance differ from playwriting or songwriting?
Yeah.
It's big. It's a lot.
Yeah. Maybe I should clarify that I am not a musical theater. I mean, like I am. I love musical
Mm.
theater, but I'm not like I've never done musical theater. Actually, I was just invited very recently to write the libretto of a musical, and I will perform in it in October. But it will be my first musical theater, as people know musical theater to be
Mm.
experience. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be like a Broadway thing, but more like think more like Bertolt Brecht or this kind of musical theater.
Mm.
Um,
I think it was about music in general because you play some instruments, and I think you've
I think
utilized
it's
them
quite
in,
different.
yeah. Mm.
I think, well, maybe I can talk a little bit about the difference for me between drag and theater, for example.
Okay.
I read a lot about this, and I think there's something to be discussed about the fact that essentially they're both, performance, um, I don't know, vessels. But theater is an art, and drag is a craft. And what that means essentially
Mm.
for me is that theater has this tradition that is very European, very white, very cisgender, very male. That is something, this is very, very present in European theater also. That is something that you need to learn, that you need to be good at, that there are people who are good and people who are bad at it. There's like this whole like high art, what is like, you know, it's an art. It needs to be, good and stuff. And
Mm.
and drag being a craft doesn't have the same thing. It's you cannot go to a university to learn drag. It's like knowledge that is passed down from people, from person to person, and it's not
Mm.
even a hierarchical thing. It's not like I'm learning from people who are a lot older than me or blah blah. Like actually, my peers are even younger, and they've been doing drag for longer than me, and
Mm.
it's like this kind of symbiotic um, process in which you're doing and you're learning and you're doing and you're learning, and at the same time you're performing your rehearsal and then you do it again, and then you do it better, and then you change something, and it's like this kind of
Mm,
really, yeah, it's a really different dynamic. I think I'm also wait. I think I also need to say that drag in Berlin is very different from, well, I guess RuPaul's Drag Race, at least, which is my other
mhm.
kind of drag reference. We are not very into perfection. We're not into some kind of yeah, I don't know, perfection. Let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you're gonna say?
Oh, I love the description of drag as a craft because the way that you were describing it describes all of the best theater experiences I've ever had.
Yeah,
Where, and again, goes back to the devising of when it works, it's frequently non-hierarchical. It works between when there's common and open exchange between collaborators,
yeah,
um, and even just putting something up before it's finished, um, getting
yeah.
on the stage before you feel comfortable, um, because nothing interesting kind of happens in comfort. I think,
No,
in my
yeah.
opinion.
Oh, yeah. And it's also, I mean, my drag community is so loving and open, and it's like,
Mm,
if you're good, they will cheer, and if you fail, they will cheer harder. You know what I mean? And I think that it's so brilliant that my friend Buba Sababa has a show every third Friday of the month called König, which means king, and he's always introducing two new drag kings, so baby kings, to the stage. And it's like everyone goes wild. And these are people, most of them have never even been on stage their entire lives. And some of the performances are like really, really professional, and some are less, but it's, you get this support.
mhm,
And this is not necessarily all the time something that I found in theater. And I think this is
mm,
also why there's such a big split between theater and drag for me, because drag is my hobby and theater is my profession, or like acting, I guess, is my profession. And there are lots of things that come with this kind of pressure. You need to make money, you need to um, put yourself out there in a certain way, you need to audition, you need to take roles that you don't really want to do, you need to work in environments that are not necessarily the easiest ones, and
mhm,
drag for me has less of that. So I will really avoid as much as I can putting this kind of pressure onto drag. I do know that a lot of people are professional drag artists, but that's not me. But I think just to end this thought, one of the things that I find completely revolutionary about drag is that this line, and this relates to, I know, something you're very interested in, this line between audience and performer is very, very blurry. And I love that people respond, people scream, people talk back, and it's kind of this really um I don't know, primal almost experience. That
mm,
you're there, like you're there, and they're there, and it's like really accessible. Most of our events are pay what you can, and it's really about something that you create together,
mm,
which also happens in theater, but not as often. Definitely not in like the traditional proscenium, thousand seat
mm.
house kind of space.
Absolutely. So we've kind of covered so many different topics of your background, of the mediums that you work in, the ways that you work, the differences. That I think you have really nailed the difference between theater, or just being in a room with other people, and performance, and the way that that differs from the virtual realm, streaming cinema, being about the image. Is there anything that you would like to offer up? Advice for creation, or even just
Advice.
like, it can be advice, it could be a hope that you have, Um, it could be a final story of when you felt that human connection
Mm.
or that primal connection.
I think that one time I worked with this director who said, in every theater house, or like in every audience, there's always someone who's going to be there for the first time and someone who's going to be there for the last time. And so you need to make this count. And I always think about that. I don't think necessarily so much about the audience, but I always think about me, and I think both actually. But I think I've been shifting a little bit about how I see, or what kind of energy I put out there into the world about um, audience versus me. And for a long time, I was really, really focused on the audience, or like their experience, what they understand, how they feel what I'm saying or what I'm trying to say. And after I did this last show that I did, my solo show called 27 Club, which was my funeral, um, I was really, yeah, no, really, I was the whole purpose of doing this show was to fulfill my dreams, my fantasies, things that I could never do on stage. I still want to be a rock star. So I was like, I'm gonna be a rock star. I'm gonna have a wonderful, marvelous costume, very David Bowie. I'm gonna be gorgeous. I'm gonna sing all this song. Even if I'm not a singer, even if I can't sing, I'm gonna sing all these songs that I've always wanted to sing, even if they don't fit into the show. I'm gonna say all these things that I've always wanted to say. And I was really feeling this, like, this is for me. And I think that this isn't always the case, but I think I see a lot of this kind of mentality after the pandemic, that people are really questioning, oh, what should I do? I think the things I've been doing, they don't make sense anymore. And I think thinking about this, like, what can I do for me, is it's really a game changer for me, that I'd never done art looking through that lens. I was always doing it for someone else, which is also important, but um, to do something for me because it gives me pleasure, because it turns me on to just do this thing. And it's like, it's really magical. It's really like, yeah, I can take the space.
Yeah.
I don't know if this
And you
answers the
deserve to.
question.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that was incredible. That's incredible advice, and it makes you wonder, because there are times where it's like, oh, I am doing this for me, but you have to ask through the lens of, am I doing it for me to impress someone else?
Yes,
Is it
it's so
really,
difficult.
does it feel alive, or does it feel I think that's a perfect note for us to end our conversation on. Zero, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
joining me today. It was wonderful to reconnect, and I hope that you have just all the best success in all of your endeavors. Are you going to be in Berlin? Where are people going to be able to see you next? Wherever you may be.
I will, let's see. I'm coming back to Berlin in a couple of weeks. I have a show coming up in late June. Then this musical in October. I have some films and TV series that I'm working on. Hopefully, they will be out, like some short films will be out soon also. And I'm always doing drag shows. Venus Boys, my collective, has their 3-year anniversary month in May. So if anyone is in
Mm.
Berlin, we're going to be performing basically every day.
Woo.
And yeah, I guess follow me on I don't know, follow me on Instagram. I guess I will try to post things. Like I said, I'm not a very good, social media user, but I will definitely, post things as they come. And if anyone has other I can't really read the chat because it's a bit too much information for me, but if anyone
Mm,
has questions or comments or stuff, they can also DM me on Instagram.
mm. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Um, awesome.